Night descended on I-94, the sky a pitch-black tapestry woven with countless gloom threads. The headlights of passing cars stretched into streaks of golden-white light, gliding like giant fireflies. Victoria Perez gripped the steering wheel tightly, her old Honda Civic trembling slightly with each gust of cold wind blowing against it. She had just finished a long day at the data analysis firm, her mind still tangled with numbers, spreadsheets, and pending fraud cases waiting to be reviewed. At that moment, she only wanted to return to her small suburban apartment, sink into her worn-out sofa, and fall into a deep, restful sleep. But fate always finds a way to intervene, shattering the rare peace in Victoria's life. A piercing screech tore through the night. She saw a sleek black sedan speeding ahead in her rearview mirror, its luxurious frame reflecting the headlights like a dark mirror. Its tires swerved erratically in an instant, smoke billowing as the acrid smell of burning rubber filled the air. "Oh my God!" Victoria gasped, her eyes widening. The sedan abruptly spun sideways, then careened toward the guardrail. The crash roared like thunder metal, twisting glass shattering, and sparks flying. The car skidded off the road, tumbling down a steep embankment and slamming into a cluster of dark trees. Instantly, flames erupted from the hood, flickering like a ravenous beast that had found its prey. Most people would have stopped their car at a safe distance, called 911, and waited for help. But Victoria wasn't most people. She slammed on the brakes, pulling her car to the shoulder hazard lights flashing red. Her heart pounded, her breath came quick, but her steps were resolute. Flinging open the door, Victoria leapt out, her shoes crunching on the gravelly ground. She grabbed a small fire extinguisher from the trunk and a multi-tool knife. The fire below cast an eerie glow, illuminating her tanned face and determined eyes. "Come on, you can do this," she whispered to herself, then charged down the slope. The uneven ground seemed to betray her every step. Gravel rolled underfoot. Thorny bushes scratched her arms, but Victoria pressed on. The closer she got, the more intense the heat, the smoke stinging her eyes until they watered. Through the cracked, spider-webbed windshield, she saw a man slumped over the steering wheel. His light brown hair was flecked with blood, his white shirt and navy suit torn and smeared with soot. He was motionless, save for the faint rise and fall of his chest, proof he was still alive. Victoria pounded on the glass, shouting, "Hey, can you hear me? Wake up!" No response. The flames crept closer to the cabin, their orange-red glow reflecting off the man's face. Panic flickered through Victoria's mind, but was quickly overtaken by the survival instinct she had honed. She spun around, smashing her elbow into the passenger side window. Once, twice, blood seeped from a cut on her skin, but on the third strike, the glass shattered into countless fragments. She climbed in the sharp stench of gasoline burning her throat. The seatbelt pinned the man's body tightly, refusing to yield. Victoria drew her knife, slicing through the tough fabric like steel, then slipped her arms under him to pull him toward the door. He was heavier than he looked, his body collapsing onto her like a boulder. "Don't die here. I won't let you die here." Step by step, she dragged him out of the car. Sweat mixed with soot streamed down her face. Her heart pounded like a war drum. A deafening explosion shook the air just as they rolled a few meters down the embankment. Flames surged, engulfing the car in a fireball. The blast threw them both to the ground. Victoria threw herself over him, shielding him. The back of her shirt singed, the heat searing her skin, but they were alive. She pressed herself against his chest, feeling the faint, fragile breaths beneath his sturdy frame. A faint groan escaped him. The man's eyes fluttered open, their blue-gray hue clouded like a stormy sea. His voice trembled, barely audible. "This wasn't an accident." Victoria froze, leaning closer to ensure she hadn't misheard. "What did you say, Alex? Wants me dead." His breath faltered, his head lolling to the side. Those brief words pierced Victoria's mind like a cold blade. This wasn't just an accident. It was a plot. The distant wail of sirens, ambulance, and fire trucks echoed, their red and blue lights flashing on the road above. Victoria let out a shaky breath, her trembling hand gripping his arm. "Hold on, they're coming. You have to live." The next few minutes stretched into eternity. As the rescue team rushed down, bringing stretchers and checking wounds, Victoria stepped back, her hands bloodied from broken glass, her clothes stained with dirt and smoke. A paramedic looked at her, his tone stern but grateful. "You're injured. Let us take care of you." Victoria shook her head, her voice hoarse. "I'm fine. Save him first." The man was placed on a stretcher, an oxygen mask covering his face. As they carried him away, the ambulance lights revealed his features more clearly. Sharp, chiseled lines, a strong jaw, the rugged beauty of a seasoned man, now covered in blood and ash. A nurse asked for his name, and an officer jotted it down: Kevin Anderson. Victoria's heart clenched. The name was too familiar. Anderson, the head of a leading fintech conglomerate, a young billionaire celebrated in the media. And now he lay on the brink of life and death, his whispered secret hanging like a blade ready to strike. As the ambulance sped away, Victoria stood in the darkness, her body trembling from exhaustion and the storm that had just begun. She knew this night wasn't just a rescue. Fate had thrust her into a vortex she could never have imagined tonight. A whisper of destiny echoed in her mind. This is only the beginning. The steady beeping of the monitor filled the hospital room, each heartbeat tracing a green wave across the screen. The stark white space of St. Mary's Hospital was cold and silent, the fluorescent lights casting a harsh glow that seemed to expose every human wound. Victoria stood in the doorway, her hands still marked with scratches from broken glass, her worn jacket singed at the back. The sharp smell of antiseptic stung her nose, making her feel as though she'd stepped into a world far removed from the fiery hell she'd escaped just hours ago. On the hospital bed, Kevin Anderson lay still, a white bandage wrapped around one side of his forehead, his left arm secured in a sling. Though his face was pale, the sharp angles of his features stood out under the pallid light. This man, who had graced the covers of business magazines and spoken at grand conferences with commanding confidence, was now reduced to a helpless patient under the care of doctors and nurses. Victoria hesitated for a moment, then lightly knocked on the door. A nurse checking the IV drip turned and offered a gentle smile. "You're the one who saved him, aren't you?" Victoria gave a slight nod. "Yes, I just did what I had to." The nurse folded the chart, her voice soft as a breeze. "He woke up not long ago. You can come in, but only for a little while. He needs rest." Victoria stepped inside her rubber-soled shoes, echoing faintly on the tiled floor. She approached the bed, meeting Kevin's half-open, half-dazed eyes. For a fleeting moment, his look pinned her in place, vulnerable, yet resolute, grateful, yet shadowed by something dark. His voice rasped. "It's you." Victoria replied that I was passing by, sitting in the chair beside the bed. "Don't talk too much. You need to rest." He gave a faint smirk, a weak smile that still carried the wry edge of someone accustomed to giving orders. "If it weren't for you, I'd be ashes by now." Ironic. Someone like me, saved by a stranger. Victoria stayed silent. Questions swirled in her mind. Why had he whispered the name Alex? Why was this accident no accident at all? After a long pause, Kevin turned his face toward her, his gaze cutting through the thick air of the room. "You heard it, didn't you?" Heard what? Victoria kept her tone neutral. "What I said before I passed out. That this wasn't an accident." Her heart beat faster. She didn't deny it, only tilting her head slightly. Care to explain? Kevin let out a heavy breath. Outside the window, the city's streetlights flickered, casting blinking eyes that seemed to watch coldly. The one who wants me dead is Alex. Victoria's brow furrowed. The name came up again, no longer a delirious murmur, but a deliberate, lucid statement. Who's Alex? My business partner. The one who built Anderson and Pierce Technologies with me from nothing. For years we were like two arms of the same body. But recently, I found numbers that didn't add up. Millions disappearing from the books. His voice was slow, hoarse from thirst, each word falling like a heavy stone. When I confronted him, he denied it. And a few days later, my car lost control. Victoria went still. She'd worked in forensic data analysis long enough to know that every book discrepancy had a price. But a murder plot to cover it up, that crossed every line. Have you gone to the police? She asked. Kevin let out a dry laugh, the sound catching in his chest. What's the point? Without proof, they'd call it a theory. To most people, I'd look like a paranoid man pointing fingers. Alex is clever. He knows how to craft the perfect image of an upstanding businessman. Victoria met his gaze. So, what's your plan? Kevin shifted with effort, pain flashing across his face with each movement. His eyes locked onto hers, suddenly sharp as a scalpel. I need the truth, and I might need your help. The words caught her off guard. Me. I heard you talking to the police earlier. They mentioned your job. You're not just a passerby. You're a forensic data analyst. Someone like you knows how to uncover lies hidden in numbers. Victoria fell silent. He'd caught that detail even in his condition. You want me to get involved? This is a dangerous fight, not some spreadsheet puzzle. Kevin closed his eyes for a moment, his voice low but firm. I saw death coming for me. The only one who pulled me back was you. I don't have many people left to trust. His bluntness threw her off balance. Her instincts screamed to steer clear of trouble. But his eyes, a mix of gratitude and desperation, stirred something else, a sense of duty. She glanced away, her eyes landing on the wall clock. The second hand ticked with a dry, relentless rhythm. You need rest, she said. I'll think about your offer. As she stood to leave, Kevin spoke again, his voice hoarse but sharp. If I die, Alex will destroy everything. Not just the company, but also the innocent people who depend on it. Victoria paused at the door. Her heart trembled. She knew one more step would take her out of this room, back to her everyday life, pretending she'd never met him. But an invisible force held her back like a fate, binding them together. The door clicked shut behind her, the hospital corridor stretching endlessly ahead. Victoria walked, her mind reeling, the image of flames devouring the car, the broken words, Alex wants me dead, and those blue-gray eyes. They swirled into a storm in her thoughts. At the end of the corridor, she glimpsed a man in a dark suit, phone in hand, his eyes darting furtively toward room 12 where Kevin lay. Her heart jolted. Instinct told her this was no mere accident. She stopped, her hand unconsciously tightening on her bag's strap. A decision took shape, she wouldn't turn away. The morning rain pattered against the glass window of the small cafe near the hospital. Victoria sat in a corner, a steaming espresso before her, its bitter taste lingering on her tongue. Outside, cars lined up in a slow crawl, their headlights glinting off the wet pavement. But in her mind, the chaos of the previous night refused to fade. The deafening explosion, the raging flames, the whispered words, Alex wants me dead. She was accustomed to the logic of data, the dry world of spreadsheets and charts. But this story was no longer just about numbers. It carried the scent of blood smoke, and the chilling truth that someone was willing to kill a colleague to conceal their sins. Her phone buzzed softly. A message from an unknown number flashed on the screen. "Thank you for staying. I need to see you. Kevin." Victoria stared at it for a moment, weighing her options. She knew further involvement would only pull her deeper into the mire. But something had shifted since his eyes had locked onto hers in the hospital room. It wasn't a superficial attraction, but a strange compulsion, as if fate wouldn't let her walk away. She replied curtly, "Where that afternoon?" Victoria stepped into a high-rise apartment in the city center. The space was luxurious vaulted glass ceilings, gleaming wooden floors, and abstract wall paintings. Yet it felt empty, cold, like an unoccupied hotel. Kevin stood by the window, his tall silhouette framed against the glowing city below. He turned at the sound of the door, his eyes settling on her face with genuine relief. "I wasn't sure you'd come." "I'm not sure why I'm here," Victoria replied, shrugging off her soaked raincoat. "You said you needed to talk, so I want to hear it clearly." Kevin gestured for her to sit. A thick stack of documents lay on the table, the cover stamped with the Anderson and Pierce Technologies logo. He said, "This is what I have," but his voice was low. Financial reports, contracts, bank statements. "I kept copies before Alex could tamper with them." Victoria flipped through a few pages, her trained eyes catching irregularities, immediately recurring payments, shell companies existing only on paper, electronic signatures that matched but bore different dates. "This isn't a clerical error. It's a system designed to hide," she concluded. Kevin nodded. "I need to prove it to the board. Otherwise, Alex will make me the scapegoat." The air grew heavy, broken only by the ticking of a wall clock. Victoria closed the folder and met his gaze. "Are you sure you want me in this?" "I'm not a lawyer. I don't have a security team. I analyze data." Kevin stepped closer, his sharp eyes betraying exhaustion. "That's precisely why I trust you. Others can be bought. You saved me without a reason. I don't have many options left." Victoria gave a wry smile tinged with resignation. "I saved you on instinct. This I'll do because it's my job. But you need to understand, once I'm in, I don't stop halfway." He extended his hand. "Then, are we allies?" Victoria hesitated, then clasped his hand. The firm, warm grip sealed an unspoken pact. The following days were a blur of work. Mornings in the company office, evenings in the luxurious apartment turned investigation hub, with laptop screens glowing and documents strewn across the table. Victoria meticulously noted suspicious transactions, using her skills to trace data threads. Kevin provided insider details, hidden relationships, heated arguments with Alex in closed-door meetings. They worked to exhaustion some nights, but a glance between them reignited their resolve. Amid the cold stacks of paper, an unspoken bond began to form. "Are you always this patient?" Kevin asked one late night as they sat by the window gazing at the city below. "I'm used to it. Financial fraud doesn't reveal itself right away. It's like a puzzle. Every piece matters." He fell silent, his eyes fixed on a distant light. "This puzzle can kill." Victoria turned, catching the conflict in his gaze, a man who'd conquered boardrooms and stood at the top now, haunted by fear of betrayal by a close friend. "Do you still trust him?" she asked softly. Kevin gripped his whiskey glass knuckles, whitening. 8 years. 8 years side by side. I want to believe I'm wrong. But the truth is becoming clear. Victoria didn't reply. She only rested her hand on the folder, a reminder that evidence was the one thing that wouldn't betray them. A week later, they'd compiled enough data to map out the financial scheme money funneled through a web of shell companies, ultimately landing in an offshore account. When Victoria pointed out the final figure, Kevin went still. $6 million, she said slowly. The room fell silent. Kevin sank into a chair, his hand pressed to his forehead. All these years. He took that much. Victoria placed a hand on his shoulder, which surprised even herself. We have the evidence. The question is how to present it at the right moment. Kevin looked up, a fierce glint in his eyes. The board meets at the end of the month. Alex will make his final move. We'll beat him to it. Victoria nodded, but a warning bell rang in her mind. Someone willing to risk a partner's life to keep a secret surely had more dangerous cards to play. The night before the meeting, rain fell again. Victoria stood on the balcony, the cold, damp wind stinging her face. She gazed at the city's shimmering streets as if the entire town was watching them. Kevin approached, draping a jacket over her shoulders. Thank you for not leaving me behind. She turned, catching the faint sadness in his smile. Don't thank me yet. We're just getting started. In that moment, the initial distance between them dissolved. They were no longer strangers, but comrades bound by fate in a shared battle, a fragile yet resolute alliance, ready to face the betrayer. That morning, the towering glass structure of Anderson and Pierce Technologies loomed like a fortress in the city's heart. The pale blue sky reflected off its gleaming windows, but the atmosphere at the entrance was agitated. Employees hurried in and out, their faces heavy with unease. Victoria walked beside Kevin, her demeanor calm, but her eyes scanning the surroundings. She carried a sleek leather briefcase containing meticulously organized documents. Though an outsider, she adopted the polished guise of an independent consultant to blend in seamlessly. As they stepped into the grand lobby, the click of their shoes echoed on the marble floor. White columns, a prominent tech-themed painting, and the company's silver logo, etched boldly behind the reception desk, exuded an air of solemnity. Yet beneath the glossy facade, Victoria sensed a deep fracture. A young employee rushed forward, bowing slightly to Kevin. Mr. Anderson, it's such a relief to see you back. We were all so worried. Kevin nodded, offering a polite smile. Victoria observed closely, catching the glances of others nearby. Some showed relief, but others cast skeptical looks. News of the accident had clearly spread, and everyone was trying to piece together what had happened. They entered the elevator, the glass doors sliding shut, sealing them in. Kevin pressed the button for the top floor. His voice low, meant only for her. Alex definitely knows I'm back. He won't hide his unease. Keep an eye on him. Victoria nodded, her pulse quickening. Kevin's office on the top floor was sleek and modern. The space was lined with a polished walnut desk shelves, stacked with research documents and framed photos, commemorating the company's milestones. But what caught Victoria's attention was the floor-to-ceiling glass window, offering a sweeping view of the city. She wondered if Kevin ever felt isolated, gazing at the tiny figures below. Before she could ask, a knock sounded. A woman in a cream-colored suit entered, holding a folder. Mr. Anderson, I just received word from finance. Mr. Pierce wants to move the internal meeting to this afternoon. Kevin raised an eyebrow, a half-smile flickering. Faster than I expected. Victoria caught it immediately. Alex rushed to control the narrative. The woman glanced at Victoria, curiosity in her eyes. Kevin quickly introduced her. This is Ms. Perez, an independent consultant. She's here to assist with some technical matters. His calm tone eased the woman's suspicion. Victoria smiled and nodded in greeting. That afternoon, the meeting room on the 14th floor glowed under bright lights. A long ebony table gleamed, surrounded by leather chairs with a dark-hued abstract painting overhead. The atmosphere felt like a courtroom. Alex Pierce entered, exuding confidence. His tailored gray suit and deep blue tie were impeccable, every gesture meticulously calculated. He flashed a warm smile at the room, but when his eyes met Kevin's, a fleeting chill betrayed his composure. Good to see you recovered, Kevin, his voice boomed. I was truly worried. Kevin didn't respond, simply pulling out a chair to sit. Victoria sat behind him, pretending to take notes, her eyes fixed on Alex. He spoke fluently, effortlessly, commanding the room's attention. Ladies and gentlemen, I've uncovered irregularities in the company's payment systems. We must address this immediately to protect our reputation with shareholders. He projected carefully prepared slides. Numbers flashed across the screen, red arrows pointing directly to accounts under Kevin's oversight. Victoria's jaw tightened. This was the preemptive strike. Alex framed Kevin as the culprit for the missing funds. Kevin leaned back in his chair, his voice steady. I've looked into this issue as well, and I have evidence suggesting the story isn't so simple. A murmur rippled through the room. Alex's brow furrowed, but he quickly regained his composure. Is that so? Then we need complete transparency. Victoria knew the critical moment was approaching. She quietly opened her briefcase, her fingers brushing the prepared documents. The evidence was ready to be unleashed. During a break, Kevin stepped into the hallway, Victoria following. The overhead lights cast their shadows long across the polished stone floor. He's reckless, Victoria whispered. Blaming you in front of the board like this leaves you no room to retreat. Kevin's smile was cold. That's why we strike back. But I need you by my side. Victoria realized his reliance wasn't just about data or evidence at that moment. It was a fragile trust he was placing in her in a place rife with prying eyes and deceit. That evening, they returned to the office. The city outside was ablaze with lights, cars streaming like rivers of fire. Victoria opened her laptop, cross-referencing the day's findings. The door creaked open. A young IT employee appeared, his face tense. Ms. Perez, Mr. Anderson, I found someone accessed the system from an admin account. Logs showed data was altered less than an hour ago. Kevin's fist clenched, his eyes flashing with anger. Alex. Victoria scanned her screen, her sharp eyes tracking lines of access logs. If he's tampered with the data, our evidence could be compromised. We need to act now before it's all erased. The air grew thick. The rapid clacking of keys filled the room. Outside, the night seemed to tighten around the building, swallowing the last traces of light. Victoria took a deep breath and looked at Kevin. This isn't just a boardroom battle anymore. It's life or death. You need to be ready. Kevin met her gaze, his eyes burning with rare intensity. I've been ready for a long time, but this time, I'm not alone. The evening rain had stopped, leaving streaks of water shimmering on the streets, and the city lights reflecting off the night sky. From the high floor of the glass-walled apartment, the view below unfolded like a living painting. Radiant streets, streams of cars flowing like glowing rivers, and in the distance, a bridge spanning the river, sparkling like a string of giant pearls. Victoria stood by the balcony, holding a glass of red wine. The rich aroma of grapes swirled in the glass, the light catching it in a blood-red gleam. She gazed at the city, but her mind churned with thoughts of what they'd just been through. The day's meeting had left a heavy aftermath. Alex's audacity in tampering with the system showed he wasn't just greedy, but ruthless enough to erase all traces, no matter the cost. The sliding glass door opened behind her. Kevin stepped out carrying a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. He set them on a small table before joining her. I thought you'd leave after this afternoon's tension, he said. Victoria took a sip of wine, not turning. I considered it. But if I walked away, I'd spend my life wondering if I missed a chance to uncover a critical truth. Kevin fell silent for a moment, then stood beside her. They looked down at the city, as if searching for answers in its flickering lights. For the first time tonight, this place doesn't feel like just 4 empty walls, he said softly. There's someone here with me, sharing this air. Victoria turned, meeting his gaze. She saw exhaustion and a faint spark of something else in his eyes, a fragile trust taking root. Are you that lonely? She blurted out. He gave a faint, bitter smile. When you're in my position, plenty of people want to shake your hand, but few truly stand by you. The price of power is an emptiness no contract can fill. Victoria stayed quiet, sensing the rare honesty in his voice. Her instincts urged her to keep her distance, but her heart trembled as if longing to erase the invisible barrier between them. Dinner was simple. A few dishes ordered from a nearby Italian restaurant laid out on the long wooden table. The rich scent of truffles mingled with the aroma of wine filling the space. They sat across from each other, the soft glow of the lights illuminating every subtle movement. Kevin held his knife and fork, but seemed barely interested in the food. His eyes were fixed on Victoria. "I've been thinking, if I'd died in that car, what would have happened? You'd never know what Alex did, and the company would fall into his hands." Victoria replied calmly. "No." Kevin shook his head. "I mean, I'd never have met you." The air grew heavy. Victoria flinched, then quickly masked her reaction by raising her glass to her lips. "You're getting off track, Kevin." He smiled lightly, setting his glass down. "Maybe. But after everything I've realized, the truth isn't just in the numbers. It's in people. And I don't want to miss the ones who dare to face me." Victoria felt her heart skip a beat. She took a deep breath, steering the conversation back. "What do we do tomorrow if Alex tampered with the system? We need backups to prove the original data." Kevin nodded, his serious demeanor returning. "I've asked a trusted team of engineers to find the backups, but it'll take time. In the meantime, we need to protect ourselves." "What do you mean?" He leaned forward, resting his hands on the table. "I believe Alex won't stop at deleting data. He tried to kill me once. If he knows you're helping me." The sentence hung unfinished, but Victoria understood. A chill ran down her spine. Late that night, after cleaning up, Kevin handed her a spare key. "You can stay here tonight. The security in this building is better than anywhere else." Victoria took the key, hesitating. She'd never let herself step into someone's private world so quickly. But recalling the shadowy figure outside the hospital corridor, she knew caution could put her at risk. "I'll stay," she said firmly. Kevin gave a small smile before retreating to his room. Victoria chose the long sofa in the living room. The soft glow of the lights reflected her silhouette on the glass windows. The city outside never slept, but a rare stillness settled within the apartment. She lay down, listening to her heartbeat. Since meeting Kevin, everything had spiraled so fast. She couldn't deny the attraction, but was wary of the world he represented: power, ambition, and deadly schemes. Before closing her eyes, Victoria whispered, "Don't let emotions cloud your judgment." A faint noise in the night jolted her awake. The wall clock showed just past 3 a.m. Victoria listened, her pulse racing. Soft footsteps, unmistakable and not Kevin's. She rose quietly, moving to a corner where a small fire extinguisher hung. Gripping it like a weapon, she held her breath. The balcony's glass door was slightly ajar, cold air seeping in. A dark figure loomed outside. Victoria lunged forward, flipping on the lights. The sudden brightness startled the intruder, who vanished toward the fire escape. Kevin appeared seconds later, his face tense. "What happened?" Victoria pointed to the balcony. "Someone was here." Kevin scanned the room, his eyes flashing with anger and worry. He strode to the balcony, inspecting the door. The lock bore signs of tampering. "I was right," he whispered. "He knows you're here." Victoria clenched her fists, her heart pounding. Fear was real, but beneath it, her resolve hardened. She said that if he thinks this will make me back down, he's wrong. Kevin looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. The next morning, the sky was clear with soft white clouds, drifting lazily, oblivious to the storm brewing within the glass tower of Anderson and Pierce Technologies. An emergency board meeting had been called. Internal rumors spread so quickly that the entire staff felt the oppressive atmosphere blanketing the building. Victoria stayed close to Kevin as he entered the grand conference room. Every leather chair was occupied by influential figures, major shareholders, department executives, and a few legal advisors. Alex Pierce sat at the head of the table, his expression calm, a faint smile curling his lips just enough to mask the ambition beneath. Ladies and gentlemen, today, we address accountability for the recent financial discrepancies. Alex began, his voice smooth as if rehearsed. Numbers don't lie, and they all point in one direction. The large screen lit up, displaying charts and reports. Red arrows and deficit figures all directed blame toward Kevin. Whispers rippled among the board members, their glances wavering. Kevin sat upright, hands clasped, his expression icy. He let Alex speak uninterrupted, waiting until the murmurs grew louder, before leaning slightly toward Victoria. "It's time." Victoria nodded, understanding. She pulled out the prepared folder and stood stepping to the center of the room. All eyes turned to her, a stranger whose confidence silenced the room. "I'm Victoria Perez, a data analyst who was brought in to review the records," she said clearly. "What Mr. Pierce has presented is only the surface. If you examine the system access logs, you'll see unauthorized changes made at times when Mr. Anderson was not present." She clicked a button and the screen shifted. Lines of system logs appeared, showing IP addresses, timestamps, and digital signatures tied to admin accounts. Victoria pointed to a critical entry. This access occurred 2 nights ago. Data was deleted and replaced. The only person with this level of access besides Mr. Anderson is Mr. Pierce. The room erupted. Some board members stood exchanging heated words. Alex's face flickered with unease, but he quickly regained his composure. "Are you claiming irrefutable proof?" he countered. "Anyone could fabricate logs." Victoria met his gaze, her eyes sharp. "I cross-referenced an off-system backup. The transactions funneling money overseas don't appear in your reports. And this," she held up a printed stack. "The digital signatures authorizing those transfers match your personal key." The uproar intensified. Alex shot to his feet, his face flushed. "This is blatant slander." Kevin spoke at last, his voice calm but commanding. "Slander, Alex. I trusted you for 8 years, but you turned that trust into a knife in my back." The room fell silent. Kevin's words cut through the veil of deceit like a razor. A board member slammed a fist on the table. "We need an immediate investigation. If this evidence holds, Mr. Pierce will answer to the law." A flash of hatred glinted in Alex's eyes. He smirked faintly. "You think you've won? The game's not over." He gathered his documents and stormed out, leaving chaos in his wake. That afternoon, Victoria and Kevin sat in his office. The tension lingered like the aftershocks of a storm. "He won't run efficiently," Victoria said, her voice low. "People like Alex don't accept defeat." Kevin nodded, staring out the glass window. "He's gone too far to turn back. Cornered, he'll get more reckless." Victoria leaned against the desk, arms crossed. "We've exposed part of the truth, but I'm afraid there's a larger force behind him. That money couldn't have been moved overseas so easily by him alone." Kevin turned to her, his eyes blazing with resolve. "That's why we prepare for the next round. This is just the opening act." That evening, the glass apartment glowed with light. Kevin sat at the table reviewing files. Victoria approached, carrying 2 steaming cups of coffee. She set one before him, offering a small smile. "You should rest a bit. No one wins when they're exhausted." Kevin took the cup, nodding slightly. They sat silently for a few minutes, the soft patter of rain against the glass, the only sound. "Today, without you, I'd have lost everything," Kevin said quietly. Victoria looked up, meeting his sincere gaze. "Don't thank me yet. We've got a long road ahead." He gave a rare, unguarded smile, filled with trust rather than arrogance. "I've never trusted someone so quickly." Victoria said nothing, but an unnameable emotion stirred within her. Amid the schemes and dangers, an invisible bond was tightening between them. As Victoria prepared to rest late that night, Kevin's phone rang. He answered, his face darkening instantly. "Who was it?" Victoria asked, alarmed. Kevin set the phone down, his voice cold as ice. "The IT team just reported. All the backup data has been wiped." The room fell deathly silent. A chill ran through Victoria. That means Alex has an ally inside. Kevin cut in, his eyes burning with anger. And the real traitor hasn't fully shown themselves. Victoria clenched her fists. They thought they'd won a victory, but the shadows behind were deeper and darker than they'd imagined. Outside, the glass lightning flashed, heralding a new storm on the horizon. The city sky was overcast, heavy gray clouds draping the horizon like a curtain concealing something sinister. Victoria sat at the table in the glass apartment, her eyes glued to the laptop screen. She had tried restoring data from multiple backups, but the results were blank. Every trace had been erased with surgical precision. Kevin stood behind her arms, crossed, his gaze sharp as a blade, fixed on the scrolling lines of code. He didn't understand the algorithms, but he knew someone had struck at his weakest point, the belief that the company's systems were secure. "He couldn't have done this alone," Victoria said softly. "Someone inside helped." Kevin nodded, his voice low. "I think so too. And if Alex has an ally within, we're not just facing one betrayer." The glass balcony door rattled faintly as the wind blew, sounding like a warning. The next day they arrived at the office with caution. The long corridor stretched ahead as the elevator doors opened, neon lights reflecting coldly. Kevin walked in front, his face expressionless, while Victoria followed, feeling every glance around them, probing. A black envelope sat neatly on the table in a small meeting room. No one claimed to have placed it there. Kevin opened it, revealing a color photo, him and Victoria, standing together by the apartment's glass wall the previous night, clearly taken from a distance with a telephoto lens. The words that froze them were scrawled below. "Don't think you can hide. We're always watching." Victoria gripped the table's edge, a chill running down her spine. "They're tracking us." Kevin set the photo down, his eyes narrowing. "This isn't just about the company anymore. It's a warning from something bigger." That afternoon, Kevin secretly met with an old friend in the banking industry. They rendezvoused in a dimly lit bar, where old jazz music mingled with the clink of glasses. Victoria sat in a corner, noting every word. The friend lowered his voice. "I've heard the missing money isn't just a few million. It's part of a transnational money laundering network. The shell companies are just a mask. Behind them is an underground organization that takes over businesses by bankrupting their partners and buying them out cheaply." Victoria looked up, her heart pounding. "Are you sure?" The man nodded, his eyes flickering with unease. "I can't hold on to this information for long. People have disappeared after touching it. Be careful." He left quickly, leaving the faint scent of cigarette smoke in the air. Kevin sat silently momentarily, then whispered, "So, Alex is just a pawn." Victoria met his gaze, seeing anger mixed with helplessness in his eyes. Then who's the real player? Night fell, and the apartment became a sanctuary and a war room. Victoria pinned charts and notes to a whiteboard, arrows connecting Alex to shell companies and offshore accounts. She underlined suspicious names in the list: a transport company, a small investment firm, and a few disguised charitable funds. Kevin approached, holding a steaming cup of coffee. "If I'm right, their goal is to seize control of the company by discrediting me. Once the shareholders lose faith, they'll buy up the stock at a bargain." Victoria wrote in bold, "Hidden force equals goal takeover." She turned to him, meeting his eyes. "So the question is, how do we fight back?" Kevin gazed out at the city. The streetlights stretched like countless artificial stars, beautiful, but capable of blinking out at any moment. To beat them, we have to let the real light shine in. Victoria arrived at the office the next morning before Kevin to review more data. As she opened her laptop, an email from an unknown sender appeared. The subject line read, "Choose your career or your life." Attached was a short video. She opened it and her heart clenched. A silver car was parked outside her home. A shadowy figure stood beside it, staring at the camera before waving a hand. Victoria snapped the screen shut, taking a deep breath. They weren't just watching Kevin. They were tailing her too. When Kevin arrived and saw her tense expression, he hurried over. "What happened?" She showed him the email. After reading it, Kevin's fists clenched, his face darkening. "They're trying to scare you into backing off." "But I won't," Victoria said firmly. "Once I'm in, I see it through." Kevin's eyes met hers, seeing not just resolve, but rare courage. "All right. From now on, I won't let you face this alone." That afternoon, the board convened again to discuss the financial losses and the company's future. Alex appeared, his demeanor cold, his eyes occasionally flicking toward Kevin with a challenging glint. Victoria sat in the back, observing. The pressure was palpable, but a fire of determination burned within her. They couldn't let an invisible force manipulate everything. As the meeting ended, Alex passed Victoria in the hallway. He paused, leaning in to whisper, "You don't know what you're up against. Sooner or later, you'll have to choose walk away or be erased." Victoria didn't reply, only meeting his gaze with eyes like steel. In that moment, she saw clearly behind his polished smile was a ruthless machine. Late that night, Victoria stepped onto the balcony back at the apartment. The cold wind blew and the city glowed, but her heart felt dark. Kevin stood behind her, lightly resting on the railing beside her. "We've stirred a sleeping beast, but together we'll find a way to chain it down." Their eyes met. In that fleeting moment, amid threats and shadows, a new trust sparked. Night fell with an unusual heaviness. The city still glowed, its traffic flowing like rivers of light. But in the glass apartment, Victoria could feel the storm brewing outside. On the table lay unfinished files, numbers crisscrossed with dense markings. Kevin stood motionless by the window, his back rigid, as if bracing against an invisible force. "I just got word," he said quietly, his voice low. "Alex has vanished from the city. But he's not alone." Victoria looked up, her eyes tense. "You mean he's being protected, and whoever's behind him wants us silenced?" In that moment, the room seemed cloaked in a cold mist. Victoria knew the danger had escalated beyond the company. This was no longer a battle of corporate wits, but a war that could claim their lives at any moment. That night, Kevin received an anonymous text. "Come to Warehouse 27 on the outskirts if you want to live alone." He showed the phone to Victoria. She frowned. "It's obviously a trap. I know. But we'll never know what they want if I don't go." Victoria clenched her fists. The thought of him going alone made her stomach churn. "I'm coming with you." Kevin started to protest, but her resolute gaze silenced him. "Fine. But we have to be extremely careful." Warehouse 27 sat in an abandoned industrial zone, where rusted metal sheets creaked in the wind. The darkness made the place even more eerie. They parked in an empty lot and stepped out in silence. Inside, flickering yellow lights cast shadows over stacked wooden crates. The air reeked of motor oil and mildew. The space was deathly quiet, save for the echo of their footsteps. Suddenly, a voice cut through the darkness. "Bold move. I didn't think you'd show." Alex emerged, his demeanor calm, as if the warehouse were his domain. Behind him stood several men in black coats, their cold eyes fixed like statues. Kevin stared him down, his voice icy. "What do you want?" Alex smirked. "Simple. Step down. Sell your shares, disappear from the company, and forget everything." Victoria took half a step forward, her gaze steely. "You think we'll comply?" A dry laugh echoed. Alex tapped a crate lightly, then signaled. One of the men opened a crate, revealing stacks of cash and hidden weapons glinting inside. Alex said, "This is the other path if you don't choose the easy way." The air grew thick. Victoria's heart pounded, cold sweat dampening her palms. Kevin stepped forward, facing Alex directly. "I'll never let this company fall into your hands." Their eyes locked, one filled with betrayal, the other with unyielding resolve. At that moment, a man in black drew a gun, aiming at Kevin. Victoria reacted instantly, yanking him down. A shot rang out, the bullet grazing a steel beam in a shower of sparks. "Run!" Kevin shouted. They darted through the maze of crates, footsteps pounding, gunfire erupting behind them. Wood splintered and dust clouded the air. Victoria's breath came in gasps, her heart thundering, but her hand clung tightly to Kevin's arm. They wove through narrow paths, desperate for an exit. But as they reached the door, a figure blocked their way. Alex stood there, gun in hand, with a cold smile. "I told you, this is a one-way road." Kevin stepped in front of Victoria, his voice sharp. "If you want a life, take mine. She's not part of this." Victoria's chest tightened. She wanted to object, but Alex spoke first. "You always play the hero. But in this game, there's no room for nobility." His finger tightened on the trigger. In a flash, Victoria saw the glint of the muzzle. Without thinking, she shoved Kevin aside. The shot roared, the bullet grazing her cheek, tearing a thin line across her skin. In the chaos, Kevin lunged, tackling Alex. The gun skidded across the concrete. The two men grappled fiercely, crates crashing, dust choking the air. Victoria dove for the weapon, but another man in black blocked her path. The fight turned chaotic, gunshots, shouts, and the clang of metal rang out like a nightmare. In that moment, Victoria felt the fragility of life. One wrong move, and it would all end. With fierce determination, Kevin pinned Alex to the ground, holding him down. But the other men closed in, guns trained, trapping them in a corner, with no escape. Victoria took a deep breath, raising the gun in her trembling hands, her eyes steady. She couldn't afford to waver. When all seemed lost, police sirens wailed in the distance, red and blue lights flashing through the warehouse's shattered windows. The men in black flinched, cursing as they scattered, dragging Alex with them. Kevin grabbed Victoria's hand, pulling her toward the exit. The sirens grew louder, pursuing footsteps echoing behind. They burst into the open lot, breathless bodies trembling. Safe inside the car, Victoria slumped in the seat, her hands still shaking as they gripped the gun. Kevin turned to her, his eyes glinting in the darkness. "You saved my life again." Victoria looked up, her eyes blazing with resolve. "We stepped into this together. I won't let you fall." Outside, the police lights flashed, illuminating their faces, marking the harrowing night. But deep in their eyes, fear gave way to a new conviction. Even on the edge of life and death, they would hold on to each other and keep fighting. The morning sky was cloaked in a thick gray haze, heavy and oppressive, mirroring Victoria's mood as she opened the unfinished folder. The confrontation in the warehouse had left a fresh scar on her cheek, still unhealed, but her eyes burned with fiercer determination than ever. Kevin entered the room, his shirt draped loosely over his shoulder, his expression pensive. "They won't stop after last night," he said softly. "We have to take the initiative." Victoria looked up, flipping to the last page of the folder. Every number, every line, every detail pieced together a larger picture. An entire money laundering network, shell companies and disguised funds intertwined. Take the initiative. She said slowly. You mean, set a trap to draw them into the light? Kevin met her gaze, a spark flashing in his eyes. Exactly. If we only defend, they'll keep attacking. We need a decoy game to force them to show themselves. The plan was devised that night. Victoria sat at the desk, pen in hand, jotting down every detail. They would leak false information about a primary share transfer, as if Kevin were ready to sell his final controlling stake. The news, they were certain, would provoke the hidden forces into action. They'll pounce thinking they've cornered you, Victoria analyzed. And when they do, we'll have the evidence to bring in the police and the media. Kevin fell silent for a moment, then nodded. This is our final gamble. If we fail, we lose everything. Then we can't afford to fail, she replied firmly. 2 days later, the fake news spread. Financial outlets ran bold headlines. Kevin Anderson, preparing to sell, controlling shares. Shareholders buzzed, employees whispered, and the media swarmed the headquarters. As predicted, the response came faster than expected. A secretive call came in the night, a distorted male voice crackling through the phone's speaker. We'll finalize the deal at the Riverside Hotel. If you want this over quickly, bring all the paperwork. Kevin set the phone down, locking eyes with Victoria. They both knew the trap had sprung. The Riverside Hotel stood by the river, elegant and quiet. A private meeting room on the top floor was meticulously prepared. A long table draped in white cloth, gleaming leather chairs, and crystal wine glasses masked the dark truth lurking beneath the polished surface. Kevin entered, his demeanor calm, but every movement taut with tension. Victoria sat beside him, a leather briefcase containing the fake documents before her. In their concealed earpieces, they could hear signals from the police team waiting outside. The door opened. Alex appeared, accompanied by 3 unfamiliar men with cold expressions. He pulled out a chair and sat across from Kevin with a mocking smirk. I knew you'd eventually cave. Kevin's voice was even. I want to end this game. Victoria opened the briefcase and presented the prepared documents. Alex grabbed them, scanning, his eyes glinting with greed. But as he raised his pen to sign, Victoria tapped the table 3 times, a signal. The door burst open, police and agents storming in, shouts echoing. Guns were drawn on Alex and his cohorts. He shot to his feet, his face paling. You set me up, he snarled. Kevin stood, his gaze piercing. This isn't a setup. This is justice. In the chaos, one of Alex's men drew a gun, firing wildly. The police returned, fire bullets ringing through the room. Victoria ducked, shielding the real documents hidden under the table. The scene unfolded in seconds that felt eternal. When the gunfire ceased, one of the 3 men lay crumpled, and Alex was handcuffed, his face twisted with rage. You think this ends it? He roared. There are bigger players behind me. The police dragged him away, leaving the room in disarray. Kevin and Victoria exchanged a glance, relief mingling with unease. He's telling the truth, Victoria whispered. We've only cut off one arm. The head is still out there. Kevin stepped closer, placing a hand on her shoulder. But we've proven one thing, they're not invincible. That night, they returned to the glass apartment. The city glowed outside, as if mocking the silent war within. Victoria stood by the glass, her eyes sparkling with reflected lights on the river. I never thought I'd go this far, she said softly, from a car accident to facing an underground network. Kevin drew near, his gaze softening. Without you, I'd have fallen long ago. Victoria turned, meeting his eyes. In that fleeting moment, fear, doubt, and the scars, both physical and emotional, seemed to dissolve. All that remained was the truth. They stood together in the eye of the storm, and they would keep going. A strong gust rattled the glass. Victoria closed her eyes, whispering, The trap has closed. But the game, isn't over. Kevin squeezed her hand, his gaze fixed on the horizon where the night sky darkened. They both knew the greatest battle still lay ahead, and the mastermind behind the shadows had yet to reveal itself. The sunset draped the city in a vibrant orange, fading into soft purple before sinking into the night. The last rays of light pierced the towering glass windows, casting a mystical glow over the apartment. Victoria stood by the window, her hair gently swaying in the breeze, slipping through a crack. In that quiet moment, she realized the journey she'd embarked on with Kevin had stretched far beyond any initial plan. The confrontation at the Riverside Hotel had landed Alex in police custody, but his final words lingered like a haunting shadow. There are bigger players behind this. Victoria knew that as crucial as their recent victory was, it was merely the opening bell of a more protracted war. Kevin approached, setting a steaming cup of tea on the small table, his voice low. "I just heard from the lawyer. The board will hold an emergency meeting tomorrow to discuss the company's future." Victoria turned her gaze calm but resolute. "And they want you to prove you're strong enough to lead." Kevin nodded. He understood that after recent events, trust was a luxury. Without solidifying it, the shareholders could easily sell the company to the hidden forces. That night, they spread documents across the table, reviewing every detail. Victoria pinned new photos and charts to the whiteboard with red arrows linking shady investment funds to influential figures, yet unmasked. "They're like puppets hiding in the shadows," she said coldly. "We haven't seen them, but we can feel their strings." Kevin stood beside her, his eyes fixed on her. He asked softly, "Are you afraid?" Victoria paused for a moment, then sighed. "Yes, but I know fear doesn't make things disappear. Only facing them does." He smiled a rare, gentle smile. "You're stronger than I ever imagined." The next morning the board meeting began. The room was packed, bright lights glaring down on the long table. Reporters crowded the hallway outside, cameras flashing relentlessly. Kevin entered, his demeanor composed. Victoria followed, clutching the folder of evidence. The room fell silent as he stood to speak. "I know trust in me has wavered these past days, but I'm here not to dodge responsibility, but to prove this company doesn't belong to those hiding in the dark." He signaled to Victoria. She placed the folder on the table, revealing data tables, photos, and detailed analyses. Page by page, they exposed the truth. Murky money flows, illegal transactions, shell companies. Some board members gasped, whispering among themselves. Kevin said firmly, "This is no longer about me or Alex. It's a fight to protect the soul of this company. I don't ask for pity, I ask for justice." Applause broke out from a few corners of the table. The tension eased, replaced by looks of growing trust. Kevin and Victoria left the building late that afternoon, after the exhausting meeting. The sky was painted in hues of orange and pink, and the river reflected light like a giant mirror. They walked along the bridge, the cool river breeze brushing past. "You regained their trust," Victoria said, her voice relieved. Kevin smiled, not with arrogance, but with the knowledge that this was just the beginning. "I have trust, because you stood by me." Victoria paused. Until now, they had been allies, two pieces in a fierce battle. But in this moment, as the sunset bathed them both, she sensed something more beyond their partnership. She asked softly, "After all this, what do you want, Kevin?" He stopped, turning to her, his eyes deep. "I want to end this war. But more than that, I want a life where I don't have to keep looking over my shoulder. And I want you in that life." Victoria's heart trembled, but she kept her voice steady. "Are you sure you're ready for that?" Kevin nodded without hesitation. "This is my promise. I'll take you away from these glass walls when the storm passes. We'll live an authentic life free from lurking shadows. The sunset blazed its final light, burning like the flame of life itself. Victoria looked at him, seeing not just determination in his eyes, but genuine affection. "If you keep that promise," she said, "I'll stay." They stood side by side, no more words needed, letting the breeze carry away their fears. Below the river flowed, the city buzzed, but in that moment, the world seemed to pause. Night fell, and they gazed out at the radiant city back in the glass apartment. Though they knew unseen enemies and unexposed schemes still lay ahead, they understood they had a foundation in each other. Victoria leaned against the railing, whispering, "The war isn't over, but at least we've won a battle." Kevin stood beside her, his eyes fixed on the horizon, his voice warm. "And we'll win many more, because this time, I'm not alone." Beyond, the night sky opened, faint stars piercing the gray clouds. Amid light and shadow, a promise was sown, a promise of a future that still held space for love and truth, though fraught with challenges.